Hey guys, welcome back to the Jays Down Podcast. I'm your host Jay. Today we're going to be going over the 2026 NFL Draft. I'm going to be giving you guys my mock draft for this year, um, which of course the mock draft starts tomorrow, April 24th, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So you can catch that there on NFL Network. ESPN will have the coverage, and we know that this year's draft not very quarterback heavy, but you got a mix of talented players here, like a few good receivers. Got, of course, Jeremiah Love headlines the running back group. Um, like some decent linebackers. So I'm really excited to see how everything's going to go this year in the draft, and I'm excited to see where these players land. But here's my mock draft. So I want to give you guys. Make sure you follow us on TikTok, Jays Fit Down Pod, and on Instagram, Jays Fit Down Pod for more content, and subscribe here on YouTube as well. We would greatly appreciate it. So at number one, I got the Raiders selecting QB Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. Of course, we all knew this was going to happen, or we all know this is going to happen. 99% chance he is going to go to the Raiders, as they brought in Clint Kubiak to be the head coach from Seattle. And Fernando's a guy, he's elite. He's not an elite quarterback, but what he does have is, I believe, an elite mind as far as processing the game and the time that he devotes to football and studying and just, you heard about Kurt Signetti, who was his head coach at Indiana, talking about how he would just be in the film room and just trying to understand, each nuances of the offense. That's the type of guy you want leading your team, leading your locker room. He's a good locker room guy, so the talent is not going to jump out across the screen, but he's a quarterback that I think will be very efficient in a Clint Kubiak-led offense, and I'm excited to see how he does. At number two, I got the New York Jets selecting David Bailey, edge rusher. I think David Bailey is a very talented football player. I think he is a guy, he's very physical. He has great hands coming around the edge. You got a good bend to get off those offensive tackles. And I think for a Jets defense that struggled to rush the passer in 2025, he would be a great addition to that group. I think he's a guy that definitely will make an impact his rookie year. We'll definitely see the field a lot his rookie season. And I like this move for New York. It has come to a point where they have got to you have to address the holes on your team with the right players that will fill those holes on your team. They in the past, the Jets have tried to do this, but they have not been able to be successful because they have not picked the right players to do that, to fill those holes and those voids on their team. So we'll see if 2026 will be different this time around. At number three, I got the Cardinals selecting edge Arvell Reese out of Ohio State. I like this guy. I think, again, as you guys will see in this mock draft, there are a lot of players out of Ohio State that are going to be going in this first round, because this was a team that won the national championship 2 years ago, and they produce a lot of great talent every year. Like they just produce a lot of great talent every single year, especially at the receiver position. But not only that, defensively, and I think Arvell Reese is no different. Again, this is a guy who's got a great motor, good speed off the edge. I like his hands. I like how he is able to engage with those offensive linemen and just allow himself to find ways to get to the quarterback, to create those lanes to get to the quarterback. So for me, he's going to be a great player for that Arizona Cardinals defense. That wasn't horrible, but definitely not a very good defense that could use some juice on the edge outside to rush the passer. It did in the run game as well. He's a very a good player. I mean, the defense that Ohio State ran this past year, they were pretty, for the most part, good at stopping the run, or they just had a few players who were decent in that. So I think Arvell Reese is going to be a good pickup for the Arizona Cardinals. Number four, I got Francis Marioa. Yes, I hope I pronounced his name right. Going to Tennessee, the Titans out of Miami. He is offensive tackle. This dude is huge. He has got a great downhill blocker, great hands at the point of attack. It's what you want to see out of offensive linemen. You want to see offensive linemen who are able to move their feet well and engage with those defensive linemen, moving them out of the way, creating those lanes, understanding, those gap schemes, offensively and where the football is going. And he's a guy that definitely does that. It was a huge part of Miami this past year in the offense, helping them in the offense move the football. And so I think for a Tennessee Titans team that could not protect Cam Ward at all, they gave up, if I want to say, the most sacks in the NFL. He would definitely love to have a guy like this on his offensive line. So definitely see him going to the Titans right there. At number 5, you got the New York Giants selecting Jeremiah Love. Yes, Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. I know they got Cam Scatterboo, and I know that, but I don't think Cam Scatterboo is the number 1 running back, plus he's injured. I think this is a great swing for John Harbaugh and the Giants to come in and get this electric running back. A lot of people compare him to Jahmyr Gibbs when he was coming out of Alabama, before he got taken in 2023 by Detroit. And I think he's got that same motor, that same burst of speed that Gibbs has. I think Jeremiah Love is also good catching passes out of the backfield. Not something he did a lot at Notre Dame, but something that definitely could be implemented in the New York Giants offensive scheme with Jackson Dart there as well. I think that would be a huge help to him. This is a guy. This is arguably the best player in this entire draft. And I think going to the Giants here would make a whole lot of sense for an offense that just needs some spark. You don't have Malik Neighbors next year, or at least for a good part of next year. So you're going to need some production from an offense from somewhere. I think Jeremiah Love's that guy. Number 6, I got Monroe Fielding going to the Cleveland Browns out of Georgia, offensive tackle. Again, the Browns are a team where their offense struggled mightily. Again, in the receiving room, the quarterback room struggled. But Shedeur Sanders is going into his second year. He's going to be starting this year, more likely than not. And I think, benefit him to have an offensive lineman like Monroe Fielding out there at the tackle position to help solidify that spot, holding things down. He's very physical, very good. He's got powerful hands, moves well for his size. And I think he would be a good addition to that Cleveland Browns offensive line. It was already decent and, in run blocking in the past couple of years. Pass protection could be better. I think he'll add a little bit to that, and he'll continue to develop, as he grows each year he's in the NFL. So that's who I got going to the Browns. Then number 7, we got Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State, going to the Washington Commanders. Sonny Styles is very smart, instinctful player, very just physical, and he is a guy that has got a knack for what the football is going to be. Watching his tape, from Ohio State this past season and just before, I think he's going to be a huge part of that Commanders defense. Plus, is a defense that that struggled in the linebacking position. Needed guys out there who are able to flow across the field and are, again, have a knack for what football is going to be. I think Sonny Styles does a great job of that, and I think he would be a good pickup to that room. They have other holes that they could fill here, but for me, linebacker is the position they want to address first. In the defense, you got to get that defense solidified before you can worry about offense. That's just how I think. Because if your defense is if your defense is, staying on the field the entire game, your offense is not going to be able to go out there and perform, but you got to be able to get off the field if you're on defense. Number 8, I got the New Orleans Saints selecting Carnell Tate out of Ohio State University. Saints, outside of Chris Olave, had really no production in the receiving room, and Tyler Shuck, who's going to be the quarterback next year. It would really benefit to have a guy who's a downhill threat like Carnell Tate, guy with a decent catch radius, and who starred in a good offense with Jeremiah Smith. I think Carnell Tate is a great player. He's going to do very well in the NFL. He's got those skills that you would want in a starting wide receiver to, which is what he already was when he was at Ohio State. So he's kind of used to that role. Though granted he hasn't had to go up against those true number one cornerbacks because he was in that wide receiver 2 position. So we'll see how he tests against great NFL talent. But I think he is going to be a good pickup here for New Orleans. So number 9, I got Jordan Tyson. So another wide receiver going to the Chiefs. He's been linked to Kansas City recently. And the reason why I believe is because the Chiefs receiving room, kind of similar to New Orleans. I mean, they got more talented players, but it's the consistency is not there. Rashee Rice has struggled. He's been off. And then you got injuries. Him, not really being able to stay on the field that much. There's like drops and and granted that Matt Nagy did do them justice with his play calling either, but the Kansas City offense just struggled mightily as a whole last year, the year before as well. And I think Eric Bieniemy coming back to help Andy Reid with the offense will help things out for them and try to get things going. When Patrick Mahomes comes and plays it, whenever he's going to come back from his injury, it would be good to have you got Xavier Worthy, then you have Rashee Rice, Jordan Tyson, led the Big 12 in receptions with 136 catches. He was second in receiving yards and 1,812 receiving yards and touchdowns. He's had 18 over the past 2 seasons. So this is a guy who knows how to get in the end zone, who can get the football and make plays, and that's exactly what Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers do, right? So I think it's a good fit for them. At number 10, the Giants, of course, traded with the Bengals to get this selection. So they traded Dexter Lawrence to Cincinnati to get this pick right here. And I think they're going to take Caleb Downs out of Ohio State, another Ohio State player. Safety, Caleb Downs, I mean, he's a generational talent. I watched him when he was at Alabama, watched him when he was at Ohio State. He's just got a knack for just what other teams are going to do on offense. He's very aggressive in the run game, which can sometimes be an issue, because sometimes he might over pursue. He might miss some angles on his tackling, but he is a very, very intelligent football player that can play in the box. He can play up high. You can play him a lot of different places, kind of similar to Kyle Hamilton and how John Harbaugh used him when he was in Baltimore. So I think that kind of similarity, that kind of connection is what's going to allow him to, or is what going to have him take Caleb Downs here at this 10th pick. I think it would help this Giants defense out tremendously, who struggled they struggled in pass defense when Dexter Lawrence was not on the field, just not even just in rushing the pass or anything like that, but in all areas. Like that shows how big of an impact Dexter Lawrence made on that team, on that defense. So I think getting a guy like Caleb Downs in there, who's just a crazy good athlete and also, again, very intelligent and has been a leader on the Ohio State defense. So I think he will be a good fit for them. At number 11, so we got the Miami Dolphins here at this pick, and I got them taking Mansour Delane, who's a quarterback out of LSU, 14 catches allowed on 35 targets for 165 yards this year, and he allowed the lowest passer rating in the SEC this past season with 11 pass deflections. So, yeah, I mean, a little under, size, a little bit of an issue, but I mean, again, like the Dolphins cornerback room is atrocious this year, like much of their roster is right now. I think they would greatly benefit from taking a guy like Mansour Delane here out of LSU, just to give him some juice and talent to that cornerback room, to that secondary. Again, this is a guy who he is very sticky in coverage. I mean, he can play really man or zone. Man or zone coverage. I think Mansour is a player that he's going to get caught in some mismatches, granted when he gets to the NFL, but overall he's a player that you want in your secondary, right? He's going to make plays. He's going to match up with those big receivers, and he's going to be physical, especially for his size. So I think great fit for the Dolphins. At number 12, I got the Cowboys selecting Ruben Bain Jr. to out of Miami. Of course, this was a guy that was supposed to be like a top 5 pick, but kind of his stock went down a little bit recently because his hand size and things like that. And yeah, his physical traits may lack in some areas, but I still think 9.5 sacks this past season. Had a few in the playoffs as well. So I think he's still a talented player. Great. He's he's got the pop, great hands. They're just not just short hands, but he's got good hands. Sometimes he can get locked on with some offensive linemen as well. So it's just a matter of him getting using his bull rushing technique. He does use that a lot. That's not going to really work in NFL. You're going to have to develop more techniques and more skills. Number 13, we got the Rams taking Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. I think this is a match made in heaven for Los Angeles. I mean, Sean McVay loves these type of guys. I mean, Mekhi Lemon is 5'11", 190 pounds or so. I mean, so he's not the biggest guy, but for his size, this dude can run across the middle of the field. He can catch over the middle. He's got physical, tough hands. He's a great route runner. He's a guy kind of reminds me of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's able to run those streakers. He's able to run those corner routes. They use a lot of those routes with him at USC. I think he would be a good fit for how Sean McVay likes to run his offense and his receivers. So I think it's a good matchup here. He's got good explosion for his size also. So he's very explosive off the line of scrimmage. Then I got Keenan Sadiq going to the Baltimore Ravens with pick number 14 out of Oregon, right? So he clearly is the best tight end of this draft class. This dude, guys, this dude ran a 4.3 40 and at the combine. I mean, that's for a tight end, that's very fast. Of course, we all know that. I mean, Kyle Pitts he ran like a 4.4, I think, or something like that. When he came out in 2021. So hopefully Keenan Sadiq does kind of, develop into what he is slated to be. I mean, first among FBS tight ends in receiving yards, fifth in receptions, and eighth in receiving. I'm sorry, receiving touchdowns. I'm sorry, fifth in receptions with 51 and eighth in receiving yards with 560. He was a big part of that Oregon offense this past year, and I think he is going to be a big part of whatever offense he goes to. In the NFL draft. The only thing is with him, he's not really a good inline blocker. They didn't really use him that much there. He's going to have to be able to learn how to block at the NFL level, but they're definitely very explosive in the pass game. A decent vertical threat. I like him. I like his speed, just like how he moves. He's just very athletic. So moving on to pick number 15, we got Tampa Bay selecting Ale Baba Vega, Ione. He's an inside offensive lineman, of course, so you can put him in at guard. Interior offensive lineman from Penn State. No sacks allowed over the past 2 seasons. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as we know, could definitely use some guard help, especially to help Tristan Wirfs out there on that left side or right side, depending on where they play him next year. I think that they will be a good addition to the offensive line. He's very big, very, very strong hands. Again, like I said, no sacks allowed over the past final 2 seasons, so he's decent in pass protection there. Run game could be a little bit better in his blocking, but I think that's something that developed over time as he gets in the NFL. He gets, just gets stronger in that regard. So I think he would be a good addition to that offensive line in Tampa Bay, who did struggle with letting Baker Mayfield get hit a lot. Pick 16, got the Jets taking Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana. He's probably one of the more underrated receivers to me this year. I don't think he was talked about enough because Jeremiah Smith and all these guys will get a lot of attention. But I think Omar Cooper Jr. Will definitely help out that Jets team. Garrett Wilson and Adonai Mitchell, who are more so outside players. I think you put Omar Cooper Jr. there in the inside with his size and his physicality, able to go over the middle of the field, very explosive out of his breaks. I think he will be a great addition to the offense, and he had 13 touchdowns this past year at Indiana. Fernando Mendoza throwing him the football. He was this guy, and I believe in the NFL that he could definitely develop into a true number 1 receiver one day. But for right now, I think going to the Jets would just help out that offense. Breece Hall, more likely than not, will still be there. Again, Garrett Wilson, Adonai Mitchell, don't know who. Well, Geno Smith will be a starting quarterback next year, but eventually they're going to need a quarterback. So, but for right now, that's why I got the Jets taking pick number 16. Number 17, we have the Detroit Lions. And here we got them taking Caden Proctor, offensive tackle out of Alabama. Caden Proctor is very massive dude, 6'7", like 350 pounds. He's a lot of people were knocking on how he's not very disciplined. He holds a lot. He did hold a lot in college when he was at Alabama. They used him a lot on offense. I will say that. So I think he would fit as far as like, how Detroit likes to use their offensive linemen to catch passes and do all this stuff. I think Cade Proctor would be a good fit there because he was doing that at Alabama. So he definitely would fit what they like to do. And Dan Campbell likes his offensive linemen, So I think, but his pass protection wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the best either this past year. Run blocking, not that good. I don't think he's, I don't have him higher. I didn't have him go any higher because I just don't think he's the best offensive lineman in this class. Some people do. I don't believe that. So at number 19, I got the Panthers selecting Jared McCoy's cornerback out of Tennessee. Panthers secondary desperately needs some help and attention. And offensively, I think the team's coming along well. Bryce Young and Terrell McMillan, Chuba Hubbard in the backfield. Like, this team made the playoffs last year. I just think their defense could use some more upgrades. So I think Jared McCoy would be a good fit for them there. At number 20, I got Spencer Fano out of Utah going to the Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys at the offensive tackle position have struggled the past couple of years to find some consistent play there. And this is where I think Fano would be a good fit for them out of Utah, giving Dak Prescott some consistent production out there at protecting and pass pro, decent run blocker as well. So I like him going to Dallas here. Then number 21, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over pick 18. I skipped over. How do I miss pick 18? I got the Peter Woods going to Clemson. I'm going from Clemson to the Vikings. Either him or Ty Simpson goes here to the Vikings. Now, just hear me out. They got Kyler Murray on this prove it deal. I don't know if, depending on how he plays, if they're going to sign him to an extension or not, or however that goes. Like, that's just depending on how things go in Minnesota this year. I think Kyler is going to have a great year regardless this year with the Vikings. But I think defensively, though, first, like Peter Woods out of Clemson, who's got violent hands, he mainly plays the 3 technique position. Production did fall off from 2024 to 2025 for a couple of different reasons, but I do believe that he's still a decent defensive lineman, defensive tackle, depending where you line him up. He can shed those blockers pretty good there. Kind of similar to Dexter Lawrence when he was coming out of Clemson, but I don't know if Peter Woods has the same trajectory, if he's going to kind of develop into that type of player. But as far as for him, for Ty Simpson though, Ty Simpson had one of the better first half of the seasons last year at Alabama. Was stayed in that same system for his whole college career. He's an instinctful quarterback. Can make those tough throws to the sideline. Good at looking off different defenders with his eyes. Like, that's something else I noticed while I was watching him. Does struggle under pressure. I want to see how he would do in those scenarios in the NFL. But I can see the Vikings going either way here. I said 19 and 20 because I skipped over 18 somehow. Number 21, I got the Steelers taking Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who's a safety out of Toledo. I think this is an underrated player in this year's draft. Of course, everybody was talking about Caleb Downs, right? And but I think Emmanuel McNeil Warren is a very good safety. He can line up inside. He play in the box. I think he's very intelligent in coverage. Just miss some things in certain areas, but I think him going to a team like the Steelers and Patrick Graham as a defensive coordinator would love so how he could use him in different packages to help them out there on the defense side of the football. And at number 22, I got the Chargers taking TJ Parker out of Clemson. So we got an edge rusher here. Yeah, I mean, Khalil Mack is probably on his last legs. You know, the Chargers like need some juice on the edge, on the outside to rush the quarterback. TJ Parker would be a nice fit for them here. So, yeah, number 23 pick, we have the Eagles taking Max Ianacor, offensive tackle out of Arizona State. Yeah, I mean, Philly's offensive line play is kind of going down the past couple of years. You know, I mean, Lane Johnson's getting older. You can see him potentially leaving soon. I think this would be a good potential replacement for him, you know, and this will help get their definitely help with their pass protection as well. They kind of struggled in pass pro this past season in 2025. Number 24, we have the Browns taking wide receiver KJ Conception out of Texas A&M. I've watched Texas A&M a good bit this year. KJ Conception is a guy that I knew was going to go, you know, in the first round this year. I just knew it because he's consistent. He's physical for his size. He initiates contact and makes separation. You need receivers like that in the NFL. The only knack on him is he had that size. But I mean, again, we talk about this with Mekhi Lemon. Like, you go to the right system and you go to the right, you know, team that knows how to use you. The Browns, I don't know if they're going to do that with Todd Monken, but we'll see how that goes. Could be definitely an interesting team for him to go to. And number 25, we got the Bears taking Keldrick Falk, who's edge rusher out of Auburn. I think Falk, you know, he fits that kind of long range, like top as far as physical, you know, prototype for the Bears and how they like their pass rushers. And yeah, Montez Sweat needs help on the edge, you know, on that defensive line. And I think Keldrick Falk could develop into a decent player for them. And at pick number 26, I got the Bills taking Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker out of Texas Tech. You know, one of the better players this year in the NFL, was a Heisman finalist, or probably should have been. You know, I believe he was though. He's the Bills defense just has been a spot where they have been good, but also bad at the same time. Like, it's one of those things where the linebacking play, it needs to be a whole lot better. You know, and I think he would definitely come in and help with that. I mean, great. He's very good in coverage. You know, it makes plays. You know, and I think just would fit that Buffalo defense very well. Moving on to pick number 27, we got the 49ers taking Melchi Lawrence, linebacker out of UCF. So, yeah, Dre Greenlaw goes to the Broncos, right? But he comes back to San Francisco. But then, you know, I do believe that taking Melchi Lawrence here to sit and learn from him and Fred Warner for a couple of years would definitely benefit him. You know, and he can come in, or if he doesn't at least in different sub packages, you know, but he may not start this year, but definitely would be a very decent player for them. Number 28, got the Texans taking Blake Miller, offensive tackle out of Clemson. Yeah, so Miller, thing with him is good pass protector, you know, good feet. I do like his hands. I do believe that run blocking, you know, he's a good run blocker. Could be better though, but again, that's something that'll develop as he matures in the NFL. The Texans were one of the worst offensive lines, or had one of the worst offensive lines, you know, in 2025. Just offensively, they just weren't that good this past year, and I think it's what killed them, you know, especially in the playoffs. Like, I do believe the Texans had the best defense in the NFL. There is no way that they should have went out the way they did, but because the offense just played so miserably, that, you know, that's why they did. So, number 29, I got the Chiefs taking Colton Hood, my former teammate from Eagles Landing Christian. So shout out to Colton. You know, hope you know, wishing you the best, man, and hope you do well at the next level. You know, like Colton he's grown so much. You know, so I played with him, very talented football player. You know, out of Tennessee. I definitely think he's going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs here. And I think he fits what they want. You lost two starting cornerbacks in Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. You know, McDuffie, of course, going to the Rams. Jalen Watson went to the Going Chargers, I think. I think that's where he went. Double check. But Colton Hood, the only thing with Colton, he does tend to grab. He's a little handsy when he's in coverage, but those things can be refined. Those things can be tweaked. When you get in the NFL. At number 30, got the Dolphins taking Chase Basantis, who was interior offensive lineman, Texas A&M, strong hands, patient in pass protection. He's able to pull very well, very athletic. Is able to climb to the second level. That's what you want to see, especially when teams that run those outside zone concepts like the Dolphins like to run. Don't know if they're going to run it this year, but just teams like to run the football in general. Like you're in the offensive linemen that are able to climb to that second level to get those linebackers, get those safeties, corners, whoever. I think Basantis is, a good pick here. Number 31, he got the Patriots taking R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. He was one of those other top rushers in this year's class of edge rushers. Of course, up there with Ruben Bain and Arvell Reese and David Bailey. I think R. Mason Thomas is, again, not super elite, but definitely could be a really good player in the NFL. Just very physical. Not the best in run defense. Tends to kind of whiff or pursuing those things, but I do believe, like, as far as rushing the passer, he can be a decent pass rusher in the NFL. And last but not least, got the Seattle Seahawks at picks number 32, the Super Bowl champs, taking cornerback D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana. Fits kind of reminds me of Devin Witherspoon, that type of cornerback. I think Seattle likes those type of players. I think he would be a good fit for them. 5'8", 180 pounds. So, not the biggest, but for what he lacks in size, he does not, he makes up for, and his physicality and how he plays can, really play, man or his own. So I think, Seattle and Mike Macdonald would love to have him there, to help out. Help Devin Witherspoon out in that secondary after Tariq Witherspoon left in free agency. So we will see. But that, guys, that's my first round mock here for the NFL. So thank you guys for watching. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also check us out on TikTok, Instagram. Follow us, Jace with Down Pod. We will see you next time.